Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. So I'm Russ Reynolds. I'm Vice President of Sales and Strategic Partnerships with FormPiper. And we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, where we're going to be talking with Encompass Pay's Brian Price about credit card processing fees and their FairCharging program. So Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Russ.
Before we get started, I do have a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to review. And I also want to talk a little bit about FormPiper, since we do have some non-FormPiper customers with us today, which is awesome. So thanks for joining us. So the housekeeping items, questions are definitely welcome. And we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. However, feel free to drop your questions in the chat at any time, and we'll be sure we get those answered. I know some things can be top of mind and then you might forget. So definitely use that chat function at the bottom of your screen. And we're going to be covering a lot of information today, and we're going to definitely email the recording out after we're done. That way you guys can go back to that recording and you can use it as a reference, just so you have all that information with you. So if you are unfamiliar with FormPiper, we help retailers increase their consumer financing revenue by streamlining their application process and giving them KPIs around their financing and staff, so they can see where they're winning, where they're losing, and then use the data inside of FormPiper to make improvements. In addition, we're also dedicated to driving success to our retailers by introducing new integrations, strategic partners, and various solutions to help their business succeed in today's competitive landscape, which is why we're here with Encompass Pay. And so I would really like to welcome one of our newest strategic partners, Brian. Please give him a welcome. Brian, tell us a little bit about FairCharging.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Happy to be a part of the partnership with FormPiper, and looking forward to bringing our FairCharging solution to your customers. So just a little background on myself. I've been in the payments industry for almost 25 years now. And a little overview on Encompass Pay. So we started the company back in 2019 because we wanted to create a level playing field for both businesses and consumers alike when it comes to the high cost of accepting credit card payments. So we're excited to present the solution, and thanks everyone for joining the webinar.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Brian. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to learning more about FairCharging from you today. Before we dig in, FormPiper's core customers are retailers in the pet, furniture, jewelry, and we're currently expanding into other areas like auto repair, elective surgeries, dentals, and so forth. So for us, retail is a very broad term. Are there any verticals that you specialize in, or any that you can't service when it comes to retail?
Yeah, so good question. So the verticals that you mentioned, they're great examples of companies that can utilize FairCharging. The good news is we can offer our solution to really any type of retail or e-commerce companies, as long as they don't fall under a restricted or prohibited category for credit card processing. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and dig right in. How about we start with some history about credit card processing and the legalization of surcharging?
Sure. So back in 2005, a group of businesses filed a class action lawsuit against Visa and MasterCard for antitrust practices that they were doing, and they ended up winning that lawsuit. The result was a large settlement to anyone who opted in on the class action suit, and some changes in the rules. But the big one for us was, now Visa and MasterCard allow businesses to pass a fee to cover the cost of their transactions on credit cards. And originally, when we first started, a few years ago, there was 15 states that didn't allow surcharging, but fast forward today, there's only 2. It's Connecticut and Massachusetts, and hopefully within the next year or 2, they'll be on board here as well.
Awesome. So now that we have some background on how surcharging originated and where we are today, Can you walk us through the main differences between surcharging and Encompass Pay's fair charging program?
Sure. So we've never liked the term surcharging. It just has such a negative connotation, which is, when we started the company, we branded it as fair charging, because it's giving again a level playing field for businesses and consumers alike. So we can talk about the rules.
Yeah.
So our solution is, we like to say, it's compliance driven by technology. And when Visa and MasterCard and the whole lawsuit were settled, we were thrilled, that we could do this. But it came with some challenges because there were a lot of rules and regulations and individual state laws that needed to be met in order to have a fully compliant program. So just to go through the requirements. So first of all, the disclosure to the customer. So customer has to be notified at the time of the sale in all payment environments. So that includes signage for retail, which we provide for our clients, verbal disclosure if it's over the phone, not in person, or if it's on a website, the verbiage needs to be clearly stated on the checkout page for the online payments. And then the next one is the percentage cap. So the card brands allow for a 3% fee to be passed on. That's the maximum. And that's what our program provides. The fee percentage has to be broken out on the receipt as a separate line item, which we also provide. This one's a big one. No fees can be added to debit cards, and that's part of the Durbin Amendment. So our technology and our program, when someone pays with a credit card or a debit card, we know in real time what type of card that is, and we apply the fee accordingly. So the consumer only gets a fair charge if they're paying with a credit card. And then on the education and the communication piece, we provide information for our clients. It's important to, put the right message out in front of this to make sure that your customers know it's coming, why it's coming, and why you're implementing this type of a program. And we provide that information and the training that goes along with it. And then from a registration perspective, so you're required to register with the card brands and also with the acquiring bank, which we also do on your behalf. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, there are two states that still prohibit this, and that's Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Okay, great. So just a recap, I guess, key takeaways from that, what I got. The customer has to be notified at the time of the sale. That could include signage for the retail, verbal disclosures over the phone, or verbiage on the checkout page for online payments. And the amount charged to the customer cannot exceed 3%. And that 3% has to be broken out as a separate line item on the receipt. And then no fees, that sounds like a big one. No fees can be added to debit cards per the Durbin Amendment. And you guys are going to be providing people with training and information about notifying their customer base. And then I guess I have a question about Connecticut and Massachusetts. So if I lived in one of those states and I wanted to buy something online from a retailer who is using Encompass Pay, are they allowed to pass those fees on through FairCharging to those customers who live in those states?
Yeah, great question. So if your business entity is domiciled in either Connecticut or Massachusetts, you can't add a fee to a credit card transaction. The state law just prohibits that. So, but it's only if you're, in one of those states doing business. So I'm in Pennsylvania. This is the other side. If I'm in Pennsylvania and I have an e-commerce business and someone from Connecticut comes online to make a payment, that's perfectly fine for them to make that payment. We can still search or add that fee, even though, you know, they're paying from Connecticut, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. It gets a little tricky when you start looking into these laws. So that's great information. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So I guess the next thing for me would be kind of looking at what the onboarding process looked like.
Yeah, and it's a pretty simple process. So what we offer to all the businesses is provide 3 recent merchant statements. We'll provide a full cost savings analysis for the business. Typically, the savings are anywhere from 60 to 90% of what you're currently paying for your credit card processing payment acceptance. Once we do that, there's a pre-application link that we send out. Business fills in all the information, gets that back to us, and then a DocuSign goes out for a signature. And once we get that, it's an underwriting process. Typically takes 24 to 48 hours. Most retail actually gets approved same day, so that process is pretty quick. If there's equipment that needs to go out to the business, we ship that out, and then once the business has a welcome kit that we send out as well. We'll schedule training and implementation to set everything up and walk through, processing, reporting, and all the functionality that we offer. And finally, once everything is installed and up and running, we have 24/7 support, for any questions or, help with anything as needed.
It seems like a pretty straightforward and simple onboarding process, and that's great because the retail world can be extremely busy and hectic. So that's awesome that it's so simple and easy. And you mentioned a cost savings analysis. I love that Encompass Pay can calculate that up front and really show the value you bring to retailers. Do you have an example of that so you can walk us through what it looks like?
Sure. So this is what it looks like. Again, once we receive the statement, we'll break down the current processing information, the volume, transactions, the average ticket, and what the total fees were for the month. And we'll break it down by credit cards and by debit cards. And then our fee structure is right here in the middle. So we're at 1% and 25 cents for debit cards. So that's what the business would pay for debit card acceptance. They'll pay 0.5% for credit cards, and there's no monthly service fee. There's no setup fee, so there's no upfront fees. And then our fair charge that we pass to the consumer is 3%. And then we break down, current costs versus what Encompass Pay's costs will be, and then the total monthly savings. And then we take that out to 1, 3, and 5 years of how much we can save the business.
That's awesome. I mean, $18,000 year one, there's a lot that retailers can use that money in their business for, even, maybe take a vacation. So it's great that you guys are able to do that for your customers.
Absolutely. And in this example, it's almost 50-50, the credit cards versus the debit cards, which is actually not the norm. Usually it's a little bit more credit card acceptance to debit card acceptance. And even in this case, with as high as the debit card volume is, there's still significant savings. The higher the credit card ratio, the more savings there'll be.
That's awesome. Well, as I mentioned earlier, FormPiper, and through that, our core business, we're always dedicated to bringing added value to customers. And Encompass Pay is a really great product for our customers to consider. So in addition to saving retailers money on processing fees and providing a fair program for both retailers and consumers, FormPiper's customers are going to receive some extra perks by signing up with Encompass Pay. So Brian, you want to go over these perks?
Sure, no, happy to. So yeah, with the partnership with FormPiper, we wanted to give back. In addition to as Russ had mentioned, saving up to 90% on your processing fees. Again, no upfront fees. One of the things that FormPiper is going to be rolling out in the near future is actually an integrated reporting feature, which will have the process. If you're processing through Encompass Pay, it'll be included in the FormPiper dashboard, which is going to be an awesome functionality for FormPiper customers. And then what we put together with FormPiper was or is whatever your average monthly volume is, as an incentive to sign up and start processing, we'll rebate up to 3% of that average monthly volume. And we'll do that once the business starts processing over the first 3 months of processing. So if it's $100,000 in average monthly volume, we'll rebate up to $3,000, in 3 equal payments over 3 months.
That's awesome. I think this is a great partnership for us. So I think my next question is going to be, how do customers get started with Encompass Pay?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. We know change isn't always easy, so we're trying to make it as seamless and easy as possible. So again, we'll do the cost savings analysis. That's as easy as emailing us 2 or 3 of your recent monthly merchant statements, and then we'll review that with you. And again, it's a pre-application to get started, and it's pretty simple. It gathers all the information we need to populate the application agreement. That gets emailed, and once it's electronically signed, it automatically goes into the underwriting process and boarding, and it's pretty simple process. Again, once it's approved, we will walk you through the implementation training and get you set up to start processing and saving money.
Okay, awesome. That's great. We just dropped the URLs in the chat so that everybody can have those. And this all seems extremely turnkey. I do have a question for you. Is there a long-term contract with Encompass Pay?
Yeah, another good question. So the answer is no. It's a month-to-month contract. So if you're not happy with the service, you can cancel at any time, and there's no penalty, no cancellation fees for stopping the service.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know we definitely appreciate the flexibility, and I'm sure all of our customers do as well. And for the added benefit of the sign-up rebate for our customers. So, Brian, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been very informative. I think now the best thing we can do is to open up the floor to questions. So, anybody has any questions, now's your time. All right, we see one in the chat. Are you integrated with any point of sale?
So we do have several integrations with point of sale companies. If you have one specifically, send it in to us, and we'll check to see if it's on our list of integrations. If it's not, we have open APIs, so we're happy to do integrations with point of sale companies, and yeah, it's as long as they're willing to integrate, we'll go ahead and do that. And I just saw in the chat it's Fran POS. We'll have to check on that and get back to you. We have a pretty big list of integrations, so we'll check on that and get an answer.
Okay, awesome. I know one question that I could see coming up with some of my customers, and that's going to be about how their customers react when they see that they're being charged a little bit. And do you have any recommendations on how to communicate this charge to their customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing to keep in mind is, you are passing a fee on a credit card transaction, and again, this is why we call it fair charging. There's always a no fee option for the consumer. They don't have to pay with a credit card and pay the fee. They can always pay with a debit card, uh, cash, ACH check. There's always no fee options to make the payments.
Okay, great. And then I have another question too, I guess, in terms of hardware. Do you guys offer hardware to customers, or what does that process look like?
We do. We have several different types of terminals that process over Wi-Fi, Ethernet, all different types of equipment depending on the needs of the individual business.
What about minimums? Like, are there, in terms of number of transactions or credit card transaction volume to qualify for Encompass Pay? Do you guys have minimums?
There are not. No, no minimums. It's we're hoping that you're putting through lots of transactions and volume, but we don't have a minimum standard now.
Okay, awesome. And then I just saw in the chat, what cost of the hardware is a question.
Yeah, so we don't charge for the cost of equipment. So that's another perk that it is part of the FormPiper package.
And that is awesome. So I'm going to leave it open. I've asked a few questions that I know my customers have. Some of them couldn't make it today. So I'll leave the floor open for questions for another 30 seconds, and then we can wrap this up. All right. Well, just to recap, today we talked about credit card processing fees and Encompass Pay's fair charging and the value and benefits their program brings to retailers. We're really excited to have shared this opportunity with our attendees today. Getting started with Encompass Pay is super easy. We dropped the URLs in the chat. FormPiper customers can also access this link in the value-added partners section of FormPiper. So as a reminder, we are going to be sending this recording out to everybody who signed up for the webinar with some supporting documentation. That way you have everything you need. And we highly encourage everyone to get that free cost savings analysis, as you probably will be surprised by the savings estimate. And then don't forget about that sign up rebate, and a reporting integration is coming. Brian, do you have any parting words for us?
I just want to say thanks to the FormPiper crew, and I think we've put together a great package here for your customers, and we look forward to working with them. So, any questions, or we're here to help. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, Brian. We really appreciate our partnership. If you're not a FormPiper customer, please connect with me so that we can get that conversation started. And if you have any questions about Encompass Pay, feel free to reach out to me or your FormPiper representative. Brian's information's in here as well. Our contact information is also going to be included in our follow-up. But I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us.